Good morning, His Excellency President Grimson, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of the Arctic. It's for me a real pleasure to be here at this forum in Korea. Korea being one of the strategic partners of the European Union, and we are addressing a topic, the Arctic, which I think is of strategic interest of all of us here present. The future of the Arctic is the theme of this session, and I would like to share some reflections that we have on this topic. We consider that we actually are in the third phase of new Arctic policies. And the first burst, I would say, the initial burst, the first phase of new Arctic politics actually started in Europe. It started under the impulse of the Rovaniemi process in Finland, which put the Arctic on the international cooperation, on the map of international cooperation. And it was Finland that played a key role in pushing for dialogue and cooperation with Arctic partners, not least also with Russia. And it is the Rovaniemi spirit that is behind the creation of the Arctic Council. A second phase during roughly 2000 to 2010, 2015, has the following features. Especially, I would say, an explosion of external interest, as is demonstrated by the increase of applications and the numbers for observership at the Arctic Council. A proliferation of Arctic policies, including, for example, the Arctic policy of the European Union. Our first edition was 2008, then 2012, and the latest 2016. And we had also the first Arctic Circle Assembly and forums that started all around the world, and for the first time here in Korea. And I would like to recall what President Grimson said. In the meantime, it has been developed as the most far-reaching international platform on the Arctic, and we are very grateful for that. The third phase, we consider that we are currently in the third phase, and Arctic matters are no longer for specialists, but it's capturing the interest of actors in many fields and across the globe. Just think about climate change, but I would say all other actors, many other fields like Arctic resources, transport routes, tourism, and many more. And this third phase to us requires much more careful attention, because we know now better and we know more what actually is at stake. Where we stand today is that we know the challenges that the Arctic is facing. Nobody should deny them. We know that these challenges are not only local, but they are global in nature. We know that they are urgent. We cannot wait any longer. We know that the geopolitical role and the geopolitical importance of the Arctic will be increasing. We know that safety and security is not a given, and that we need to continue working hard at it. And we know that the current Arctic policies that are being implemented might be insufficient to operate in this new, steadily developing situation. So what about future scenarios? What about creating new ways of thinking about and working with the Arctic? What is clear that we need in any case is to continue to focus on multilateral and international cooperation. When it comes to the Arctic, out of sight is not out of mind. It's not simply the sole responsibility of those who call the Arctic Circle their home. The issues at stake are too significant to be dealt with by individual countries alone. Robust and sustainable development in the Arctic requires prudent and responsible thinking, also from those who sit, for example, in UN negotiations, far from the Arctic itself. So it's the responsibility for all of us. We need cooperation and not confrontation to overcome these issues. We need the Rovaniemi spirit, the Arctic spirit, and action to continue to be reinforced in future. And in this regard, we welcome very much the strong engagement of our Asian states and observers in the Arctic Council on the Arctic. Their cooperation with us, we appreciate also very much, including also your regional cooperation that you have developed among the 3 Northeast Asian countries. With a view for the future, in addition to international cooperation, we advocate for more responsible approaches. What does it mean? It means a robust and orderly and rules-based approach, which I think speaks for itself, an ambitious and innovative approach, meaning to make optimal use of the latest scientific research and innovation. It means a sustainable approach, meaning to balance the objective to preserve the fragile Arctic environment while supporting sustainable development of the region. It means also an inclusive approach, which I consider extremely important. Inclusive approach means inclusive for the people living in the Arctic, inclusive for all those who contribute in addressing the challenges of the Arctic within and outside the Arctic. Inclusive events, such as the Arctic Science Ministerial. I personally participated at the 2 days, and I think one of the reasons of its success was its inclusive nature. Inclusive events like this Arctic Forum that we are participating in. Inclusiveness or more inclusive approach that should also be reflected in fora that deal with the governance of the Arctic. And I very much support also what the ambassador of Japan has been saying, that definitely observers are willing to be more actively engaged. And last but not least, an approach that promotes connectivity. Connectivity within the Arctic and connecting the Arctic with the outside world. And allow me to say a word about connectivity because it's so important. Connectivity is in the DNA of the European Union. All what we have realized in the European Union is thanks to connectivity. The European Union is about successfully connecting people, business, member states, and we have done so ever since its inception. Connectivity plays a key role for the Arctic. Our European Union Arctic policy foresees an annual Arctic stakeholders forum, and we had one in 2017, where we were asking the views of stakeholders on key investments and research priority in the future. And the number one topic which came out of these consultations was that there was need for more connectivity, especially digital connectivity. And in many parts of the Arctic, good connectivity and communications are crucial, but there are still many connectivity gaps and challenges in the Arctic. And one of them is the need for better satellite coverage. We have European space programs, Copernicus, and we had, I think, a very interesting panel on EU space programs in Reykjavik at the Arctic Circle Assembly. Our main program is Copernicus. We call it the Eyes of Europe on the Earth, but it's not sufficiently already developed on the Arctic, and therefore Copernicus, we are planning an expansion of our program for more than 16 billion euros, which also would be in future be able to cover the Arctic in its entirety. And last but not least, the European Union just adopted, I would say a few weeks ago, a strategy of connecting Europe and Asia. The strategy is based on the understanding that better and more connectivity is in the interest of both Europe and Asia. It's built on partnership with Asia. And just to give you an indication of the importance, Europe and Asia together account for 70% of the world's population and 60% of the world's GDP. Connectivity builds bridges between cultures and countries. And the strategy provides a concrete plan for have better sustainable connectivity between Europe and Asia in transport, energy, digital, and people-to-people contacts. And it also, we are providing a comprehensive financial framework that can mobilize the necessary capital for investments in connectivity. And finally, what about the European Union in this future scenario? Now, looking at the Arctic policy of the European Union of 2016, I dare to say that we are proud what we have already achieved. We are very strongly engaged in words and in deeds. However, with all the developments that are taking place, our policy might be too narrow already now for the future. But whatever the future will bring, it will require a continued strong role and a strong involvement of the European Union in Arctic matters. And whatever the future, it will require a continued and enhanced cooperation with Arctic states, with the people, with our direct neighbors and the outside world, and certainly, especially, with our Asian partners and friends. And remember, the Arctic is one of the most challenging places in the earth. It's good to have friends. Thank you.